I worked at the Bethany Care Center for 12 years as a recreation therapist with seniors with dementia.
Okay.
And one thing I discovered was how powerful their photos were from the past.
Wow.
So one thing we would do is have families, if it was available to them, to bring in older photos, like much older photos from their childhood early on. They may have forgotten what they did 30 seconds ago, 5 seconds ago, honestly, with the short-term memory, but they could look at that photo and they'd be like, I was with my sister Mary. It was 1952. We were at the Rose Parade. I can still smell the roses. And it gave them a chance to share their experience in life.
Absolutely.
And that really impacted me. I'm like, oh, photos have power.
Yes.
Photos have energy. And that evoked my interest in photography.
Wow. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flourish Podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us, and I'm so excited about Shar Woodman joining us. Shar, welcome. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Abe.
Okay. It's very rare for you to be on this side of the camera, which is just a real treat for all of us to be able to get Shar on this side of the camera. And so why am I saying that? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Shar, and I am kind of going to read a bit from her bio. Shar Woodman is a certified creativity coach who truly, I believe this isn't in her bio, but I added the truly understands the value of creating a safe environment that inspires trust quickly, activating and empowering new mindsets. She has an incredible gift for the visual. And the story that emerges from Shar is that she has a visual brand coaching that ends up happening through her photography and through the work that she does with people. And so the story that emerges from Shar's visual brand coaching produces solutions that stand on truth. Shar is not about the show, which is great because there's far too much of that out there in my view. She's about showing up well for others as they work through their story, ultimately unveiling the unique vision that engages, connects, and inspires. In Shar's words, my job is to lead people to hope, which ultimately is the invitation to transformation, and transform people. I love that. And she's a professional photographer. She's a visual expert. She supports people to grow in that and to show the heart and the essence of who she is. She's done a lot of our photography work. If you've seen stuff for Certified Flourishing Coaching or Flourishing Workplace, chances are Shar has been behind that. And her company is called One Pearl Productions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I'm grateful to have you. That's the bio, but tell us the story. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, pulling a few of those words out, I really do feel like I operate quite genuinely seeking truth.
Okay.
And that's generally the foundation that I like to stand on, if possible.
Yep.
And then I also like to speak hope into most situations. And being a part of the flourishing community has certainly accelerated and amplified that. Because I really think the atmospheres that we place ourselves in and the environments that we're in, the people we choose to be with, really affects our language. It affects what's possible. And so I just want to start off with gratitude and thank you that I've been able to journey with Flourishing for going on into the third year. It's
amazing.
And I know I wouldn't be where I am without the community and the connection and people like dropping seeds. And I'm watering some of those seeds now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you, and thank you for that. And I mean, you have for sure contributed so much to us. I mean, just as an observer of a practitioner, and I always love to watch people in action. I know this might sound strange to some people, but I love, for example, just watching carpenters do their thing. When I have plumbers over to the house, just watching them in action, it actually is always amazing to me. And then when you see artists in action, I mean, tradespeople are artists, but when you see an artist, let's say in music or a visual artist like yourself, there's a whole, there's something going on there that's so much more than, pushing buttons or mounting a lens on a camera. Tell us about that for you and why, because I think your gift is helping people to, one of your gifts, because there's likely much more than I'm even aware of, is helping people to really feel that confidence to be able to let the best part of themselves out there. And a lot of the time we hide it, right? We kind of have all this greatness inside, and we don't want to let the world see it because maybe we ourselves feel a little shy or insecure about it. But you seem to help people unlock that a bit. So I'd love to hear, and I'm sure everyone would, about that journey for you.
Well, you let me receive it from another perspective today, because I am not used to being on this side of the camera very often. It's becoming more normal, but you did things for me this morning that allowed me to settle into being in this atmosphere with all the lights and cameras and actions and mics. And I'm used to being that person. Right. So it was interesting for you to come to me authentically as a friend, to converse with me. That's something that I bring to every, hopefully, interaction, but especially I'm very aware of it when I'm photographing someone, because people normally, the nerves are up. And it is awkward being, for most people, on the side of the camera. So I know entering into, I have to create the atmosphere. That's my responsibility. So if I create an opportunity of warmth, of welcoming, whatever I can do to offer that specific person, I'm reading the person as soon as they walk in, and I'm reading 90% of it body language, which is something you teach here at Flourishing in every single certification, is the nonverbals and how to read them. And I try and adapt and do what I can in order to pull that person into trust. So, for instance, I'll kind of give you a situation where it was like the most challenging person I've ever photographed.
Is it me? I'm probably at least in the top 5, right?
Top 5. You're number 5. But number 1 was a gentleman, and I've been photographing for a while now, probably 15 years at that point, was having a full-blown anxiety response. Wow. So there was sweating profusely. There was shaking. There was everything. So I thought, okay, maybe I didn't do something to create an atmosphere for this particular individual. How can we troubleshoot here? So we just, we did some things to allow him to enter back in as if it was the first time he was walking in the room again. So like just, reading people, creating an atmosphere. Cynthia brought water, had a note out, made ourselves comfortable. That all matters.
Sure does.
That all matters.
So tell us, so how long have you been a professional photographer for?
Okay. I always base it on my son. So I started when he was 4 and he's 23.
Okay. So 19 years. Coming up on 20?
Coming up on 20.
20 years. So how did you get into that? Like what was the path? How did it look for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing that actually sparked in me was I worked at the Bethany Care Center for 12 years as a recreation therapist with seniors with dementia. And one thing I discovered was how powerful their photos were from the past.
Wow.
So one thing we would do is have families, if it was available to them, to bring in older photos, like much older photos from their childhood early on. They may have forgotten what they did 30 seconds ago, 5 seconds ago, honestly, with the short-term memory, but they could look at that photo and they'd be like, I was with my sister Mary. It was 1952. We were at the Rose Parade. I can still smell the roses. And it gave them a chance to share their experience in life. And that really impacted me. I'm like, oh, photos have power. Photos have energy. And that evoked my interest in photography.
Wow. And so you just one day just launched, and I love that. I love knowing that about you, that was the genesis. And I've experienced that time and time again when talking to somebody who is older and maybe experiencing some dementia. Even younger people, right? Get triggered by the visuals in a positive way, sometimes even in a negative way. And so with that, how has it been? Like a photography business is not an easy thing, I would imagine, but you make it look easy, but how's it been for you?
Well, it was a slow progress. I thought, I love photos. I love taking photos of people. I love the creative part of it. What I didn't realize for the first 2-3 years was, I need to learn everything about business. And that wasn't really available then. So I was seeking outside sources for how do you create a business and how do I be a businesswoman? And now I have those tools. And so It was a slow progress, but I got those tools. And it really is, a lot of it for me is, do I people well?
Okay.
Do I people well? Am I going to get the return client?
Right.
Do people appreciate the work? Does it fall in alignment with who they are?
Yeah.
And so that's always important. But when the global event occurred, everything stopped.
Right.
So I needed to create some new possibilities.
Right. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that. What new possibilities did you start to create?
So I am still doing photography.
Yeah.
And that's one of my main priorities.
Yeah.
And then I focused a little bit more on the One Pearl Productions aspect of producing.
Okay. Yeah.
And this one really just kind of organically happened as well. And I have a partner, and we're creating a show called Adventures with Eleanor.
Love that.
And she's a little pearl discovering her worth.
Yes.
And she's 4.
So tell us about that, because I, of course, been following that and really think it's awesome. I really have been impressed with that. So Adventures with Eleanor. Tell us about Adventures with Eleanor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just shared my experience of discovering my worth, which is one of my greatest life lessons.
Yes.
And it came from negative experiences, like most of our really good life lessons, or a challenging experience. And I just shared this story with a good friend that I met through Flourishing. And she wrote me a song for my birthday about this one little pearl discovering her worth, and she named her Eleanor.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. I'm like, I can picture Eleanor. She's just this pearl with eyelashes and shoes. And about an hour later, I get a digital rendering of this little pearl wearing shoes and having these big eyelashes. I'm like, well, she needs to come to life.
Wow.
And that evening, Tanya downloaded some sort of digital formatting and brought her to life.
Isn't that something, eh?
And now we're just discovering how we can impact preschoolers who were born during the global event.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of adjustments for families and stress.
There was huge
So we want to come in with emotional and social wellness and intelligence.
Right. So your target is preschoolers. You're working with preschoolers,
yes.
eh?
And, online.
And it's online. So it's tell us in practice, if somebody said, hey, I want to sign me up. It's episodes. Is it weekly? Like, what's happening with it?
Oh, yeah. So it's built as a 1-year series.
Okay.
And we've set it up so you get one treasure every week.
Nice.
So,
Okay.
there's something to anticipate, but there's a bit of a wait for it.
Yep.
And we think that's a good way to set things up with that age group.
Okay.
And yes, you get the first week of every month, you get the episode and an after show.
Okay.
So it's meant to be watched with your parent, caregiver, preschool teacher.
Okay.
So there's a time to connect and attune with one another after.
Nice.
The next week you get a craft and color page.
Okay.
The next week you get the MP3 of original songs.
Okay.
So good.
Nice.
They're so good.
That's awesome.
And then we're so thrilled to be partnered with Chloe McKinley, and you may know her name, through Flourishing. And
Tell us about her.
She is a counselor.
Okay.
A registered clinical counselor.
Excellent.
And behavior, I forget the other word to that.
Behavioral therapist, maybe?
Behavior consultant.
Okay.
And she's going to do a Q&A
Okay.
for the parents and caregivers.
Okay.
So if they have specific questions, she's really filling a gap.
That's great.
We feel. And so that's how it will unfold. You get either the monthly, if you just want to check it out, make sure it's going to work for you and your family. And then when you're fully in, you can get the year of programming.
That's so
And you
cool.
get a treasure every week.
That's awesome. And maybe the greatest treasure is just discovering that you are the treasure, right? Especially when you're that age. But I love how you and the team has taken this on, because it's absolutely apparent to me, like there is a crisis of worth right now. And, we can't just say, well, it's all about the teenage girls, or it's all about, people going through midlife crisis, because it starts long before that. Definitely let's pay attention to our teenage girls and, people in a midlife crisis or whatever, but it's actually in those early formative years, that foundation of a healthy, self-worth is either laid or it's not laid, right? And so is that a part, along with, of course, the global pandemic and the event that has really reshaped so much, but is that what has driven this for you? Like, if you had to sum it up or describe what's driving this for you, what would that be?
I would say, because Tanya's starting to share a little bit of her story, and she's shared that aspect, that she had a challenging first few years of life.
Yes.
And it's an opportunity actually for us to rewrite some of that.
Yeah.
And rediscover a story that she can claim back.
Love that. Powerful. And that's the message of hope, because you've talked a bit about hope, and I know that's a word for you, a strong word, is that, we can't actually rewrite the events of our past, but we can for sure rewrite the story. And so I can envision this not only being healing and supportive to the children themselves, but of course, even to the parents. I find, even as a parent myself, we often just parent how we were parented, which is not always great. And so I think what an incredible resource, especially with the support that you have in Chloe and all of it to really help parents to better parent. I mean, I don't know a single parent out there who's like, I don't want to be a better parent. Every parent wants that, but often we just don't have the tools. And you know what? Parenting is stressful.
Yes.
It's not like it was a couple hundred years ago. I'm sure it was stressful then, but now there's just so many other inputs in the environment that parents can sometimes feel quite powerless. So is that part of the vision too, is really supporting those parents and helping them?
Yeah, we're looking at a holistic approach to it.
Yeah.
Our focus is the children, but like you said, having Chloe partnered with us is very powerful.
Yeah.
And then building it for it, like they're 7 to 15 minutes, because that's the attention span of an average child that age. And we're hoping that's enough time for a parent to be able to, like a very busy parent, which I'm sure most of us are.
Yeah, absolutely.
To take that, 7 to 10 to 15 minutes to be able to do something fun with their child where they get to connect and attune, and maybe even have a little childlike wonder themselves.
Nice. Love that. So if I wanted to get involved with Adventures with Eleanor, what's my process? How do I do that?
Yes, you can follow us on social media platforms just to kind of get your feet wet and see what we're about.
Yep.
And that's Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Okay.
We just started. And a little bit on YouTube as well. But go to adventureswitheleanor.net is where you can watch a free episode and learn a little bit more.
And on social media, are you known as Adventures with Eleanor, essentially? Okay, so Adventures with Eleanor on all the socials, and adventureswitheleanor.net. And please do check it out. Now, there's so much about you that we could explore, but I know that you also do a lot of facilitation, like with creativity in businesses and organizations, obviously with our flourishing community. So tell us about that, because creativity is an interesting topic. We hear the word creativity, and I mean, at least back in the day, you think Michelangelo, right? Do you know what I mean? You would think Sistine Chapel. You would think, I don't know, Steve Jobs, like some massive paragon of creativity. And then, of course, the comparison sets in. Well, I'm not going to invent the iPhone. Like, I'm not creative. And then that becomes a story we tell ourselves. So what's your take on creativity, and what are you doing in that space right now?
Well, I would have always probably described myself as a creative person, just in the pursuits and passions that I have.
Yeah.
That being said, I actually never thought about it until I got connected with you here at Flourishing, with you and Connie writing the creativity manual. It's actually a way of thinking.
Okay.
And now I've completely adopted that as true.
Okay.
That makes any and all of us available to creative thinking, creative thought, innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I often think, again, no disrespect to the Michelangelos or the highest of the high level creatives, but what's more creative than a carpenter and the problem solving that often they have to do before noon? I mean, what's more creative than a plumber going into a house that she's never been in to solve a problem that is maybe completely new to them, in the sense that exact house they've never encountered, and yet they're able to problem solve and make things fit so that person has working plumbing, which is just amazing, right?
I just had that event unfold recently. So
there you go. Very personal.
Thank you, Len, for figuring it out.
Thanks, Len.
Shout out to Len.
Yeah, I think that creativity is something that I love how you say it's a mindset, because if we understand it's a mindset, then we don't get into, well, there's the creatives over here and the rest of us. I think what ends up happening is we begin to look at problems differently. We look at a problem and we say, okay, let's understand it, but how could I apply a creative or innovative lens to perhaps finding a solution? And I would love to see people celebrating their creativity more, because I think all of us are problem solving like probably 50% of our day. But because we just do it, we don't actually slow down enough to say, oh, wow, actually, I'm doing this and I am creative. So that's an important thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
So tell us about some of the workshops that you facilitate. I mean, both with Flourishing and outside. I mean, just love to hear what you're doing.
Well, Flourishing first and foremost is obviously what got me out of the gates to focus on this and to empower and equip me to be able to do it. And I've been doing that for, I guess, since it started, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's so fun because each time it is so different, because there's different people in the room with obviously different gift sets. And so there's a learning process along the way on how to adapt things and create while we're going what's going to work for the group and for individuals. And outside of it, doing it within Flourishing has equipped me to do it outside of Flourishing. It's built my confidence, you know, on the material, and to be able to adapt it for, say, I've worked with the city of Calgary, doing a few workshops for them with their innovative lab there. And that's been a ton of fun and well received.
That's so
good. Yeah. They have an innovation team.
Cool.
But they still brought me in. So like there's always more. That just made me think, well, why would they have me in?
Yeah.
Because there's always more. And there's a new perspective and a new dynamic that Flourishing brings.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So tell me, you know, just as we kind of wrap this up, if a person was there listening to this today and they're thinking, yeah, I'd like to be more creative or adopt more of a creative mindset, what would be a couple of, tips that we could give them, or pieces of advice or wisdom that might help them in that?
I might say, to start off with, think about what's robbing you of your creativity. What could be blocking? Maybe we could share a few of those things that people might be able to unlock something. It could be perfectionism. I have to do it right, so I'm not even going to start it.
Yes.
Or I'm not going to pursue it because I got to get it 100% right.
Right.
It could be lack of creating space and time to be able to create.
Right.
Like not creating time for it.
Right.
Because that could seem selfish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe a third one, comparing yourself to others.
Right.
I can't do it as well as that person.
I've never done that, but others have done that for sure. Ha ha. I love the first and the third, like perfectionism and comparison. I think those are so important. And for me, it comes back to Adventures with Eleanor, as silly as that might sound, because I'm really vulnerable to perfectionism if I'm getting my worth and my value from my performance, right? So if my only sense of worth and value is, well, how perfect was I today? Well, of course, my self-worth is going to be up and down like a toilet seat, because some days I perform awesome and other days I just don't. Other days I don't. And so then my bad performance can lead to a low sense of self-worth. And then I think secondly, like if
I'm just picturing the toilet seat up all the time, because
the metaphor is there. Yes, you are a visual person, right?
Visual.
That's right. Okay. So, and definitely boys, when you go number one, toilet seat needs to be up. Okay. So let's clear that one up. We know that. But I say that because we have our 1 month old today, little baby Jira.
Yes,
so
Jira.
My wife has never had a baby boy before until now. And so she's looking at the different anatomy and thinking spatially about, okay, what's the different lessons we're going to be teaching. So it's been interesting conversations with her. She's like, having a boy's more work because there's more parts to clean.
Yes,
it's a whole other.
Hilarious. I love it. Sidetrack.
That's a very, very interesting sidetrack. But, I think the comparison is also often about our worth, right? Because it's so easy, especially in our digital environment. Like I can take a look right now and see people on the other side of the planet who I've never met. I don't know their backstory. I don't know what editing software or AI they've used. And I can look at an image of myself and compare it to someone else and immediately get heartbroken because I'm not as good as, But the second one you said about making time and space. So I feel like this is different a bit for everybody, but what are some things that a person can do if they wanted to make a bit more time and space for creativity?
Yeah, I'd say just carve out some time, whether that be whatever works for you in your schedule, once a week, 10 minutes a day.
Yep.
We often forget as adults that play and curiosity is available to us.
Yes.
So in order to get there, sometimes we need some of us need a little more warm-up time to that.
Sure do.
And that's why we thought with Adventures with Eleanor, it invites like parents into play without thinking, because they're doing it for their kids.
Yeah.
But it's available to them. So are there
24/7.
areas in our lives that we could be available to play?
Yeah.
I have a friend who, if she sees a swing set, she's on it.
Nice.
Right? She's
Nice.
in her 50s, but
Nice.
if there's a swing set, she's doing it. Even if it's just for a couple swings, it's her thing.
Absolutely.
Could we adapt and adopt some of the things that we remember that were exciting to us at some point in our life and find a new way to bring that into our life? Like my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
She loved playing with dolls.
Yes.
Okay, when she was
Nice.
little, like forever. Like she
Nice.
played with dolls till she was about 10.
Nice.
And she loved creating the atmosphere of the house, okay, for the place, the environment for them to live in. What does she do now? She has the most amazing home.
Nice.
It is a home. She cares about like what it smells like, what it looks like, aesthetically, plants. It's gorgeous. So she realized, I brought that creativity that I learned as a child and something that I really loved doing into my actual adulthood. Yeah. And it brings me great joy.
So
she
good.
would say. So is there something like that where you could start?
Yeah.
Just
love
having
that.
some fun again.
Yeah.
Who doesn't
some fun
want
again.
that?
Yeah. And I think it's something because we do get so busy. And then when we get busy, our creativity gets depleted somewhat because we're just going. And, I had a professor in university who would talk about keeping even just a little, he called it an innovation log, and how he did it was a little notepad. Because what he said is that all the time, and it's true, we always get these ideas, and then we lose them because we don't write them down. And he said you don't even have to execute on them, but if you just take 2 seconds and write it down, then later you can go back through this little innovation log or whatever you want to call it, and you can actually review, was that a good idea? Does that make sense? And sometimes one idea can lead to another, which leads to another. And, of course, now with phones, you may not necessarily need to carry a physical notebook, though a lot of people do like physical notepads. But I find myself emailing myself all the time, little ideas, just because, it's like I want to analyze that later. I don't have time to think about it right this second, but if I lose the thought, then I might regret it.
Future Abe's going to love it.
That's right. And future Abe might
say,
have
"Great
time
idea,
to.
Abe."
That's right. Well done, son. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. A little bit of self-love there. But so Shar, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, so to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, there's I think 3 real cool things they could do with you. I think one is Adventures with Eleanor. We've talked about that, .net. A second would be to utilize you for some of these visual services as a photographer. So where would a person connect with you there?
Yes. So Facebook, Shar G Photography,
Okay.
or One Pearl Productions
Okay.
on Facebook, or One Pearl Production on Instagram.
Okay.
They could just DM me there. Would
Okay.
be the
So
best.
One Pearl Productions is maybe the best?
Yeah.
On Instagram or Facebook. And honestly, folks, I wouldn't just say this lightly. She does excellent work. She'll listen to you. She'll understand you, because that's really what, I think her role is that helping get the best of you out. And, pricing is absolutely reasonable. So you're going to really enjoy your experience with Shar. So One Pearl Productions. And then, I know, again, because you do a lot of the facilitation, you do it with us. So certainly people could go to our website, but if they were like, hey, I need a creativity coach or I need someone to come and work with my group to develop more creativity, innovation, what's the best way to reach you there?
I'd go One Pearl Productions again.
So One Pearl Productions is it's the vortex. So just get into that stream, send her a DM. You're actually a person who reads your own DMs. Say you're not so big, yet.
Not so big.
That you don't get a million DMs a day and you're just like, man, I got to hire a person just to read my DMs.
Soon.
Soon. You're on the path, one of these preschoolers you're training. Right. You're like 8 years from now, child, I have a plan for you, you know?
You bet.
But any final thoughts, Shar? This has been a really great conversation. Appreciate you sharing your heart. But any final thoughts as we wrap it up?
Well, I was contemplating a lot just since we spoke last around the concept of flourishing.
Nice.
And I'm thankful that we don't need to compare our flourishing even to someone else. It's like, I'm better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
I've grown in these areas from last year.
Yep.
And that's another area where I think we could have a lot of freedom and liberty to live without those chains and hindrances from comparing ourselves to others when we're in the state of growth.
I love
heading
that.
towards flourishing. Because, you know, I can say I am flourishing in certain aspects in my life.
Yeah.
Other ones are definitely growth areas.
Yeah, I love
two
that.
growth areas, very specifically.
Love that.
But like I look to you as a marker. I look to you as an aim. I look to Connie. I look to some other people as, okay, well, I see what that takes.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we can just get ourselves in the right environments, be very aware of our environments, the atmospheres that we're with, or people that we're with and the atmospheres that we're in, that can change the trajectory of our day and of our life. And so if you're thinking about a place where you could be with people like that, honestly, this flourishing has been the place for me to grow safely. And I'm going to say fairly quickly.
Safely and quickly. Love that. Thank you. And I'm looking at my phone, not because I'm distracted, but because, you know, I'll show you this picture, but I don't know. Here's my challenge to our camera folks, but that's my little son, his hand in my hand. And then you can see there's a picture of him. And, you know, you can see the size, just so you can see, Shar, of his hand. His entire hand is wrapped around. That's actually my sorry, folks, but hey, we're working with professionals here. They can handle it. You know, he's got his entire hand wrapped around just my little finger. Now, he's only a month old. And it's so funny is that I also have a 24-year-old son and yet a 1-month-old son. So that does weird things to your head and weird things to a lot of things. But I'll say this, like, imagine little Jaira comparing himself to his big brother. Like, just how illogical and irrational that would be. Like, imagine a 1-month-old saying, but my hand's not as big as my big brother. Josh is my oldest son's name. And that's exactly how I feel about comparison. Like, it's just so illogical. What are you comparing yourself to? Well, I always look at it two ways. I compare myself against future Abe, and I compare myself against past Abe. And all I mean by that is, am I growing and getting better than I was? So that's past Abe. And then secondly, future Abe is the very best version of me that I'm aiming to become. Because if I aimed to become the best version of you, that wouldn't work. I can't ever be the best version of you. No one does Shar like Shar does Shar. And no one does Abe like Abe does Abe. And so I'm also always saying, as long as I'm living up, like I think sometimes close my eyes and think of myself as I'm a 90-year-old dude who accomplished everything that he wanted to. And I'm not saying I'll be that guy, but imagining I was, would that future guy look at me and say, yeah, you're making progress? And that, the past Abe encourages me, the future Abe challenges me. And I think those are the safest comparisons. Whereas if I'm comparing myself to your past or your present or your future, that's a recipe for really bad mental health. And so that's why I just love what you said. And I hope that resonates for somebody and for you.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Shar, for joining us today. It's been a real privilege. I know that you add so much value everywhere you go, friends. And so please, again, check out One Pearl Productions. Check out Adventures with Eleanor on social media and adventureswitheleanor.net. And please do tune in to our Flourish podcast next time. And if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to just drop a 5-star review in there for us, that would really, really help us. Make sure you subscribe and share this, and we'll see you next time. Take care.